Hey everybody, Ian here. So happy March, first of all. I realize this is several days late, but welcome to the February 28th edition of my rom-com reviews. I know I was going to start doing these every other day, but I just didn't want to. I'm going to get to my thoughts on rom-coms in general, but I was feeling some kind of movie burnout, but also rom-com burnout. I don't really like rom-coms. But anyway, before I get any further into the video, just don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to my channel if you have not already. The movies I watched for today, I watched 3 movies. So at least, even if I'm 3 days late for this and skipped the 3 videos before this, I am at least reviewing 3 movies in this video. I watched 3 Marilyn Monroe movies, all from the 1950s. I watched Some Like It Hot from 1959, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes from 1953, and The 7-Year Itch from 1955. And I'm just going to do my little reviews of all of these. I need to set a timer, excuse me, for I'm going to set a 7-minute timer for each movie and then just try to, actually I think I'll do 6 minutes. Where's timer? Oh, there. It's in alphabetical orders, and I was scrolling around in the C's, and I was like, where's the timer? But it's way further down. Anyway, 6 minutes and 20 seconds. That's a SpongeBob reference. 6:20. Anyway, I just got a text too. Anyway, start. So, let's start with Some Like It Hot. This was the only black and white movie on this list, which was interesting because it was made after the other two. It was 1953, 55, and 59. And for some reason, the latest one was in black and white. But the basic plot of this movie is that there are 2 male jazz musicians in the 1920s. Even though this is made in the 50s, it takes place in the 20s. But 2 male jazz musicians, they witness a mob hit. They witness a mass mob killing. And so they disguise themselves as women. And they go into hiding as members of a female jazz band where they meet Marilyn Monroe, along with several other flavorful characters. My overall feeling before I get into the real, rankings or ratings and stuff, I thought this was fun and it was an enjoyable movie. But by the time the last 20 minutes, 25 minutes came along, I was ready for this to be over. Even though that's where really most of the action is in the last 25 minutes of this movie, and it did not keep me hooked the way that I would expect it to have done so. The writing, I thought it was quick and it was sharp, and it wasn't bad by any means, but it was very tame, I think, by today's standards. The 1950s was a much different time socially and in terms of what was allowed in movies. It was much more conservative, and there was this thing called the code that movies had to follow, and it was not a gentle suggestion, like if you couldn't get a movie made at all if it showed someone's belly button, or if they even said hell, or damn, or if they showed a toilet flushing, or any of these really basic normal things were not allowed in movies. And so, like I said, it's just kind of tame by today's standards. And the ending of it seemed a little bit hasty, considering how drawn out the third act was. It felt like the third act was happening, and then all of a sudden it's done. And it was like, oh, it felt like the last 5 minutes didn't follow the pacing of the previous 30 minutes. The acting was solid. Marilyn Monroe, she won a Golden Globe for this movie. That was one of that. She didn't have a very long career. She didn't have an opportunity to win Oscars and BAFTAs and Screen Actors Guild Awards, awards upon awards upon awards, the way that a lot of other Golden Age stars did after they, kept acting into the, the 50s, or 60s, 70s and stuff. But this was her main award that she won. She won a Golden Globe for best actress in a comedy movie. Excuse me. And the guy, one of the two male musicians, his name was Jack Lemmon. He got an Oscar nomination for this, and it was one of like 8 Oscar nominations he got in his whole career. He was a very respected actor, I guess, and was a good actor. He was good and funny in this movie. I have no problem with him getting the Oscar nomination. As for the directing, all 3 of these were very beautifully directed. The studio era of Hollywood, that's kind of the 30s, 40s, 50s, and first half of the 60s. The studio era of Hollywood was it was really something else in terms of output of product. It was really bad for the artists. There wasn't a lot of the actors and maybe even the writers. They didn't have a lot of creative control because the studios had all the power. Like Marilyn Monroe, for example, her real name was Norma Jean, and she was a brunette, and the studio like forced her, not encouraged. They forced her to dye her hair blonde and change her name to something very showy and elegant, like Marilyn Monroe, from Norma Jean, and they made her talk like this instead of her normal talking voice, and it was very tightly controlled. And this was a point in time when stars they had to put on full like hair and makeup to just go to like the grocery stores. There weren't allowed to be bad pictures of like celebrities. Again, very tightly controlled in this studio era of Hollywood. But it's also, that same era is also called the golden age of Hollywood because the movies that were being made back then were and are so good, so well put together. Because they all, the 4 or 5 big studios had all of the money, all of the directors, all of the resources to make really good products. But so it's interesting watching 3 movies in a row all from this era, and just seeing how pretty they are and how well put together they are. Even the ones I preferred the least out of the 3 of these. It was just like, oh, this is still such a well put together movie. But so anyway, as for just the vibe overall, I thought this was fun and it was entertaining. 42 seconds left. But yeah, like I said, by the last 20 or 30 minutes, I was done. I was ready for it to be over. My favorite character was Jack Lemmon's character. He was just very funny and very he had a spunky acting style, and he was good. My favorite scene of it was I won't say what happens in it, but the final scene was just they're on a boat, and that was funny and good, and it felt like it resolved the plot pretty well. And I'll go through my little breakdown of the ratings later on in the video for all 3 movies. 7 seconds left, so let's just scroll back up to the top and hit reset before it could even go off. There's 1 second left. But so anyway, before I get into Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to my channel if you have not already. The basic plot of Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, it stars Marilyn Monroe and Jane Russell. And they're 2 rich young women who are hunting for men to marry. And Marilyn Monroe only likes rich men, and Jane Russell only likes fit men. And it's them basically, I think they're on a cruise ship for a majority of I think really the first whole half of this. And it's basically them on the prowl and facing some consequences for some of the things they did whilst on the prowl. Speaking of just Marilyn Monroe in general, she is the reason I'm wearing my pink shirt today, my pink hat, even though this isn't like pink, it's like tan pink. But she's just very glamorous, particularly in this movie. This movie is very visually dazzling. But so anyway, my overall feeling on this movie, before I get into the 5 actual pillars of my rating, I was disappointed by this movie. It felt sexist, and because it's about them looking for the man they want to marry so that they can be, set for life. And it was just like, women are allowed to do more than that. They don't need a man to be set for life. What's beeping? Oh. And also it's a musical, which I didn't realize until like the third song, I was like, is this a musical? Because the first one, it was kind of during the intro of the movie, and it was Marilyn Monroe and Jane Russell dressed as like showgirls, and they were just singing a song. And I was like, okay, that makes sense that they would be singing a song right now. And the second one, I just kind of wasn't really, it just, something wasn't clicking during it, I guess, for some reason. I'm not sure why. And then about 30 seconds into the third song, I was like, is this, do they like keep singing in this movie? Is this like a musical? And it is. And I don't like musicals like that. I don't like it when everyone just gets up and like bursts into song. I don't like that. And so that and much more importantly, the sexist tone of this movie both really dragged it down. As for the writing, there was nothing wrong with the writing itself. Oh, there's like a, I just noticed this while I was scratching. There's like a mark right there. I'm not sure what that is. Anyway, there's nothing necessarily wrong with the writing itself, like in terms of structure or pacing or anything like that. But the content again was very. It was. I was watching this movie with a friend of mine. I think we watched all of Some Like It Hot and the first like 20 minutes of Gentlemen Prefer Blondes together, and a little bit into Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, she texted me and she was like, is that like all their characters do? Like, is she just only into, does she just like diamonds? Is it the limit of her character? And that pretty much is. And the limit of the other character is that she likes fit men. And it was like, what? It was, and it was one of those things that once you kind of come to terms with that, it can get funny. There are some genuinely funny parts in this, but that's just an annoying thing to have to wrap your head around, and I feel like it was not necessary. I felt like they could have this could have been really fun if it was a movie, if it was the two exact same characters with the two exact same personality traits, except they were just looking for, if they had just been looking for men to date and have flings with, that would be fine. But they're looking for men to marry so that they can have good lives, and it was like, and be set for life. I mean, and it was like, oh no, that's ugh. And I get that it was the 1953. That was a different time for women, but I feel like I highly doubt that I'm the only person who has ever found this movie sexist. Anyway, in terms of the acting, nothing was wrong. There wasn't really any bad acting, even on the part of some of the kids, but there was nothing really standing out in terms of acting. As I said for the other one, the directing for all three of these movies was really beautiful. And this movie in particular, one thing I liked about this was, and I mentioned earlier, it's very visually dazzling. A minute and a half left. Okay. A minute and 23 seconds. It was a very visually dazzling movie. It was very bright and rich colors, and all the diamonds were super shiny, and I loved all the costumes and the outfits and stuff. Lots of surface level beauty in this movie. There's nothing wrong with surface level beauty, but I like it to, but it, if it's only on the surface level, that's different from being surface level and deep level beauty. I don't think I talked about this when I was talking about Some Like It Hot. My note for the music for Some Like It Hot was in no way memorable. I didn't walk away from that movie thinking anything about the music. This Gentlemen Prefer Blondes was a musical, and the music numbers were all good, and the choreography was good. Again, the songs were just, it annoys me that the content was so lacking in this movie, because if it had been a different tone of movie, I could have enjoyed this like so much. If they'd been like the girls on like Sex and the City in this exact musical, I would have loved it, but they weren't. They're not independent women. They're (1950s) women. But yeah, like I was saying, oh, my thing's buzzing now. The songs were well made, but the content dragged them down. That's similar to almost all the other the pillars of my rating. And as for the vibe overall, just and that's just how much I enjoy watching it. Totally subjective. very well put together in every respect, but just didn't like what was at the heart of this movie, which is that the notion that women need a man so that they can get their lives going. And I don't like that. I thought they could have been perfectly interesting characters by themselves, and they just chose not to do that. And again, I guess this is because it's a product of its time. And also, like I said, it's very visually dazzling. I love the colors in this movie. My favorite character, there was a little kid who just had several funny lines, and he was very dry. He didn't emote at all, but it was clear that it was intentional. And my favorite scene in this movie was there was I won't say what happens, but for a certain reason, Jane Russell impersonates Marilyn Monroe in court. And this was a very entertaining scene from start to finish. It's a surprise in the movie, so it's kind of a spoiler. You know, they invite Marilyn Monroe's character onto the stand, and Jane Russell, dressed as her, comes up, and so the audience is seeing for the first time that this is happening. Anyway, let me hit repeat on my timer and scroll back up. Again, don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to my channel if you have not already. The last movie I watched was The 7-Year Itch, and this was made in 1955. The basic plot of this, there's kind of two things going on. The term 7-year itch refers to the phenomenon of wanting to leave a relationship after roughly 7 years. Once you're married to someone 7 years, supposedly, it's kind of like, oh, do I want to stay in this? And what happens in this movie is that all the all the wives and kids leave New York City every summer to go cool off in the Hamptons because it gets to like 100 degrees in New York. New York gets hot in the summer. And that happens to this guy. His name, it was Tom Ewell. He was the main guy in this movie. And he had been talking to himself. He walks around talking to himself. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. One of the things he's saying is like, it's ridiculous that, you know, I've been married all this time, and I never get bored of my wife. I never go cheat on her when she leaves for the summer. I never do all this stuff that men supposedly, you know, when the what is it? When the cats are away, the mice come out to play. You know, that's supposed to be the scenario, and he's saying like that's not really the case. And then like later that day, the guy lives in a townhouse, and like later that day or like the next day, right after his wife and kids leave for the summer, Marilyn Monroe moves into the townhouse right above his as like the summer house sitter for the couple that usually lives there. And he, you know, this piques his interest because it's, you know, it's Marilyn Monroe. My overall feeling on this movie, before I get into the 5, you know, pillars, I liked this one the best. I ended up liking this one the best of the 3. This is the movie where Marilyn Monroe's dress like blows up in the wind, not like blows up, but like is lifted up by the wind above the subway grate. Just for I can't think of the right word, not clarity, not context, the sake of something. But anyway, that's that movie. We could talk about the writing, though. It's the one of first of 5 pillars. This is something that got increasingly funny and interesting as it went on. The main guy, Tom Ewell, I don't know if I'm saying his name right. His character has a very overactive imagination, and there's lots of different scenes of him being very paranoid and imagining people talking about him or imagining conversations he would have. As a person who I personally pace around my apartment talking to myself, I never believed the writing or the acting when Tom Ewell would pace around talking to himself. I never found it very convincing, just because, again, I do that all the time. And I was like, it's not very realistic. A person who doesn't do that might have found him very convincing, but a person who does wouldn't, and I didn't. The acting, in terms of the acting, Marilyn Monroe was good. And Tom Ewell was not bad at all in this role, except when he would pace around talking to himself. I don't think he as a person did that in his life, and so it just kind of seemed like he didn't understand he was walking around talking, but walking around talking is different from walking around talking to yourself. And it didn't feel like he was talking to himself. He was just kind of explaining stuff. The directing, again, similar to that, to this, it's not even similar, same as the other two. The directing in all three was just very, very good. In terms of how pretty shots were and how telling they were at the same time. They would be very beautifully constructed and informative. And it was just like, oh my God, this is very well made. And I'm glad I finished off with these movies in that sense, because I felt like I was getting myself more and more used to looking at directing over the course of this month, and then finished this month with 3 really well directed movies. The music in this, similar to the first one, I don't remember the music in this movie. It's not the thing you walk away thinking about. The vibe of it is that it's just really good. For the first half of this was on track to come in second place behind Some Like It Hot and above Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. But then the second half of this movie, The 7-Year Itch, just kept getting better and better and better, and I just left fully satisfied. And I was never ready for this movie to be over in the way that I was ready for Some Like It Hot to be over. I didn't want to keep watching that movie. And had this movie, The 7-Year Itch, gone on even, 10 more minutes, I would have been ready for it to be over. But it was like the exact right length. I think it was like an hour and 40 minutes, 45 maybe. I think Some Like It Hot was like 20 minutes longer. And you could feel that while watching the movie, or at least I could feel that. My favorite character in this movie, she was just a very small role, but a waitress at this like vegetarian restaurant that the guy, Tom Ewell, goes to a couple times, or he goes to once, and then the other time that you see her, it's during one of this kind of daydream paranoid fantasies of his. I think one of the reasons I like those is because we all I think we all have that thing like, oh my God, everyone hates me. They're talking about me. Those people are doing XYZ, and they're really not. And at one point, he's gone through this whole scenario about how Marilyn Monroe hates him and is bad mouthing him all over town. And then like 30 seconds later, she like knocks on the door. She's like, "Hey, it's so great to see you. How's it going?" and it was just funny. And actually, my favorite scene was all of his little paranoid sequences. I don't know which one in particular. As for my rating, I just in the interest of time, I'm not going to do the full breakdown of what I gave each pillar of these movies. But my ended the full rating for Some Like It Hot, I gave it a 7.2 out of 10. I gave Gentlemen Prefer Blondes a 6.8 out of 10. And I gave The 7-Year Itch a 7.5 out of 10. And that's the order in which I watched them. I'm glad I saw 7-Year Itch last, because it was up, down, up. And if I had seen Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, my least favorite, last, I might have thought that I was just getting tired of them. But I felt like seeing that movie third gave me perspective on the other two. I was like, okay, those were appropriately perceived in my head. If a thing I think is interesting about Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, my least favorite, that one got a 6.8. And because of how well put together this movie is, I don't think it would be possible for this to get much lower. I don't think it could have gotten below a 6.5. It was just too well made. Even though I didn't like it, I didn't enjoy it, it was too good to be. If this had been made in the 90s, it wouldn't have been as well put together, and so it probably would have gotten like, a 5.1 or something. But because this was in that, that studio era, or the golden era, this really is a very, when I say it's a product of its time in terms of, women not having options socially, it's also a product of its time in how good the movie still manages to be, because of, again, how well constructed it is. even though the heart of it is very hollow. Had the heart of it been more substantive, this, like I said, this had the potential to be an excellent, excellent, excellent movie. This had the potential to be like my favorite of all of the movies I watched this month. Had the message of this movie been different, it probably would have been my favorite of all of them, all 22 that I watched. And it just wasn't, and so it wasn't. It was a disappointing movie, but this was an interesting day to, or shouldn't go into this. This has been kind of long already. I'll just say this. I liked finishing with her movies. I felt like this was a good way to finish this month. As for rom-coms in general, I'm glad I'm done with this month. I don't like rom-coms, even though I liked a good number of these movies and enjoyed them. The genre overall is very predictable and seems pretty stale, to be honest. I made a spreadsheet similar with the wine rankings. I made a spreadsheet of all the movies I watched and the ratings I gave them and my notes on them. I'll show those at the end of the video. But anyway, thank you guys very much for watching all/some of these, or maybe just one of these, this one. Regardless, I hope you guys had fun watching these. I had fun making them for the most part. I got bored of the rom-com, and not just bored, like as a person who writes and likes writing, I don't like bad writing, and a lot of these were like badly written. There were a few that I started and then didn't. I was going to do one on the 22nd and I was going to do one on the 24th. I think it was 24th and 26th, and I started the movies that I was going to do those days, and then I stopped because I was like, I don't like this. I'm not doing a movie today because I don't want to watch this movie because it's bad. But so anyway, thank God this month is over. It just became 7:10. I'm going to try and have this posted by like 8:10 tonight. Anyway, thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you had a good time. I will be back to my normal videos, really starting like next week. Yeah, no, it's already Wednesday night. I don't think I could have one the end of this week. But yeah, I want to start making like weekly normal videos like next Friday. Anyway, yeah, have a good night. Thank you for watching. Bye.